Level up your LA Kings experience with Vivid Seats Elite Seats. All the on-ice Kings action with even more exclusive access and rewards. Enjoy great seats to the game in Section 103 along with Yamava Club access and parking included with your purchase. Plus, get a free Team LA Kings shop item at the game. Score your Vivid Seats Elite Seats tickets today and earn perks on each purchase from the only leading ticket company with a rewards program. Experience it live with Vivid Seats, the official partner of the LA Kings. Did you know the LA Kings have their own culinary partner? It's Superfood, celebrating 10 years and over 1 million meals served. Since 2020, the Kings have trusted Superfood to fuel their players. Now through Simply Lunch, you can bring that same performance-driven food to your office. Because when people eat better, they work better. Visit mysuperfood.com. That's mysuperfd.com. Or call 213-973-6145. Qualified companies can enjoy a free lunch for up to 10 managers.
Had one shorthanded goal this season. Can he score in the playoffs? Backdoor for Pinelli, and he scores! Oh, baby! That was pretty!
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings.
Connors back on in, high slot. Lee kicks it over to his right for right, back for Lee! And they score!
Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
Welcome back to another episode of All the Kings Men. I'm Jesse Cohen. Joining me today to discuss the Ontario Reign, broadcasters Cam McGuire. How are you doing today, Cam?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm good, thank you. And Paige Capistran. How are you doing today, Paige?
I'm excellent, Jesse.
So, guys, I wish we were doing this under better circumstances. I was kind of hoping this would be, in between wrapping up round one and getting ready for round two. Well, 2, 3, whatever, however the AHL rounds are numbered. But unfortunately, the Reign lose. Now, I was at Game 5. I did not attend Games 1 through 4. So, Paige, we'll start with you. It seemed to me, based on watching at home on Flow Hockey and Game 5 in the arena, that the Reign struggled to generate offense in the series. Is that a fair criticism?
That would be very fair. I think that for the way that the Reign ended the regular season, I mean, not that last game, but just overall the month of April, they were generating a lot of offense. And for some reason, when it came to playoffs, I don't know if it was that first round bye. It's hard to, you can blame that now, like it's an easy excuse, but for some reason, the Reign, the puck wasn't really going into the net the way that we were used to seeing in the regular season.
Cam, it's particularly hurtful as a Kings fan to see another team in the organization struggle to score in a playoff series where even though the scores, I mean, I'm looking at them right now, and Coachella had some games where they put up some numbers on the board, but I still felt like Ontario played solid defense. I mean, there were games where they held them to 1 or 2 goals.
Yeah, I mean, most of the games, right, they did hold them to 1 or 2 goals. You look at the only one that really sticks out that you might kind of scratch your head at and think, what happened there was Game 4, 6-2, but 2 of those goals were empty netters. I think it's different, right? And like going back to offense, I think I'd probably be the first one to say, was there maybe a lack of offense in the series for Ontario? It's probably safe to say yes, but you kind of maybe expect it going into playoffs with things starting to tighten up. I mean, even when you look at the games, right? 3-0, 5-1, there was an empty netter in there. 2-1, 6-2 with 2 empty netters, and obviously a 3-2. You kind of expect that to see some low scoring games come the playoff time.
How much of this page was just that the bigger names on the Reign, sorry, I kept wanting to call them the Kings. The bigger names in the Reign's, offensive arsenal just didn't put points on the board. The leading scorer in the playoffs is Jack Hughes, tied for second, Kenta Isogai. These are fourth liners with AHL contracts.
Yeah, I mean, really good for Isogai and Jack Hughes whenever you're able to have some offense chip in on the fourth line. That's really important. But if your top players, your top goal scorers aren't putting the puck in the net, aren't generating, it's going to be hard to win in playoffs. So I do think that, like, overall, when you look at what went wrong for the Reign in this round 2 is the top guys didn't show up. And I think that just really unfortunate, disappointing. And when you look at a team like Coachella, their top players, like look at Oscar Fisker-Molgaard, he's leading all of AHL in points right now for the playoffs. And that's exactly what you need for successful teams, is to have your best players being your best players. And if your fourth liners are your best players, you're not going to win games.
Yeah, I knew Jagger Firkus's name, but by the end of this series was tired of hearing about Jacob Melanson. Melanson, however you pronounce it, Fisker Molgaard and Jagger Firkus. Cam, Eric Portillo is a name that Kings fans I think are real curious about. He's got 1 year left on his deal, and he's at a point in his career now where if he doesn't make some kind of significant step forward, difficult conversations start being had. I thought in the 3 games I watched him play, he played really well. Game 1, he lost 3-0. I'm not sure I put that on him. Game 5, he kept them in it all the way through double overtime. Like, I definitely don't put that one on him. And the other game, just, there's some games where like a team in front of you just doesn't give you any run support. What did you think of his play, not only in the series, but also in the season?
Well, to start first with the series, I think he was amazing, right? You look at game 1, as you mentioned, I think it was 30 saves and the team lost 3-0. So as you said, you can't really blame that one on him. And then in game 3, he stops 27 of 28 in a 2-1 win. And then obviously his performance in game 5 was remarkable. I mean, a couple of those saves in overtime, there was one that all 3 of us can probably remember vividly. I mean, I don't know if he could have done any more in that playoff series to help give the Reign a chance and to kind of to plead his case that he is, should get a look next year at a higher level. And then I think his season as a whole, obviously suffered that injury in Calgary in mid-November and missed about a month and a half up until mid-January. He was remarkable from the start of the year till the end. I think, towards the end of the regular season, he kind of maybe hit a little bit of a speed bump, but not necessarily to a degree where he wasn't playing bad by any means. But I think when you stack it up against how he was playing at the regular season and then when he came back from his injury, obviously the numbers would be a little more skewed. But I think, going into the playoffs, I mean, for Paige and I's sake, we didn't really know what the plan was going to be. We didn't know the plan going throughout the series, and obviously they continued to rotate between Phoenix Copley and Eric Portillo as they had pretty much done so all season long when both goalies were healthy. For Phoenix Copley, I actually thought down the stretch that he was the better goalie, and then come playoff time, I think that both of them were kind of neck and neck, and maybe Ports would probably have the upper hand when it comes in the playoff series, but not to take anything away from Cops, because both those guys, not only in the regular season, but in the playoffs, like night in and night out, they gave the Reign a chance to win every night.
Paige, Andrew Lord was asked after Game 5 about his decision to rotate goaltenders and asked pretty pointedly by John Hoven if he regretted it, if he thought that, going to it to a rotation rather than sort of picking one starter and riding that starter, if he regretted it. And he said no, he felt confident in his decision. As a player, do you find it useful when it comes time for tournament play or short-term, runs that you need? Is it easier to just have one starting goalie and go with that goalie, or is it okay to go rotation?
I think it's okay to go rotation. You look at the Reign's regular season, and since that's what they did the majority of the season, besides when Portillo was injured, flip back and forth, I think the Reign, they were used to it. And they were Pacific Division regular season champions for a reason. So I'm a big believer on what's the saying? Don't fix what's not broken. Yeah. That. So I think when you're just in the groove, it's from a player's perspective, doesn't matter who's in net if they're both giving the team confidence. And I think both Portillo and Copley give the team a lot of confidence. And talking to the players, I remember one interview with Angus Booth, he said the communication, the energy that Ports brings between the pipes, excellent. So those are the types of things you want to hear from the players.
It's funny. I'm just old enough that in my mind, you pick one goalie and stick with him. And I was talking on a different platform recently and was like, when's the last time a team had any success going with a goalie tandem? And then people started throwing out years, and it was like 8 of the last 15 or something. It's been perfectly successful strategy. Let's talk about Angus Booth since you mentioned him. He's a player that again, the Reign have a lot of younger players who are not Kings prospects because they're not under contract with the Kings. They also have a lot of players who are under contract with the Kings, but who are old enough that maybe they don't qualify as prospects. But Angus Booth hits that sweet spot of young enough to be considered a prospect. Also, signed by the Kings, Kings property. Played one game in the NHL this season. What can you tell Kings fans about Angus Booth's progress this year?
Yeah, I mean, in that one game for the Kings, he did put the puck in the net, but that's not normally what you see from Angus Booth. He really is a shutdown D, and I think overall for the Reign, their D core this year, they didn't have anyone that was rushing the puck all the time. They really did play as a unit and have that defense first mentality, and I think Angus Booth led the way in that, and the way he's able to control his gaps, his skating ability. I thought towards the end of the season, he was showing great poise on the point with the puck and being able to kind of generate some more plays the way he was playing on the point. But overall, when I think of Angus Booth, I think of just a shutdown defenseman, someone that you have a lot of confidence in. You can put against the other team's best lines, and he's going to get the job done.
I mean, that sounds awfully familiar to Kings fans, Cam. When the Kings replaced Jim Hiller with DJ Smith, this didn't occur to me until weeks later. But because there's been such a focus on the Reign playing the same style as the Kings for years now, when they changed coaches mid-season, I think this is the first time in a long time that the change of head coach for the Kings paired with a distinct change in playing style. When they went from McClellan to Hiller, I'm not sure that much changed. The change from Hiller to Smith was a radical change. Was there any sense that was reflected or asked to be reflected in the Reign when that change happened?
I can't speak on if it was asked for them to change, but in terms of my observation at least, I don't necessarily think there was really much of a change in playing style. To be completely honest, I don't think we saw anything drastically, differ from what we had seen kind of throughout the early months of the season up until the end.
One of the guys that, again, is in that weird window of he's young, he's talented, but he's not Kings property, is Jack Millar. And I was watching the series, and every time there was a big penalty kill, it was him and Hicketts were the top pair going out there. And I found it odd because we get all this talk about how it's a development league. The point of the AHL is to develop players. And yet in big moments, crunch time moments, penalty kill moments, it's Hicketts, who's the Reign captain, Jack Millar, who's on an AHL contract, Andre Lee, and I want to say Glenn Gaudin was the top PK unit. Should Kings fans start paying attention to Jack Millar? I mean, he's young enough that they could come around and try and work something out, but he's also old enough where who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I would if I was a fan. I don't think it's off the question by any means. I think for him, I remember the biggest thing that stuck out to me when I saw him for the first time, on the ice during the regular season, I was like, man, this guy is huge.
He's 6'5".
Long reach.
You see him off the ice and he's a big dude, but then you see him on the ice and you're like, holy cow, he is massive. And he skates really well too for how big he is. And like Paige said, his reach is obviously outstanding, given his height. But he's just an all around rock solid, steady guy. You kind of know what you're gonna get night in and night out. And there's a reason why he's out there in those big situations. And back to what Paige was saying about the defensive core throughout the whole season, it wasn't, there wasn't a guy that was going to be a puck rusher, a quote unquote offensive defenseman. I think Jack Millar kind of epitomizes what the Reign blue line was this season. Just heavy, hard to play against, and defensively sound and defensive mind first.
Yeah, and going off of that, he's my favorite player to watch. And I think it's because I have such a soft spot when it comes to defensive defensemen, because that's how I played. And when you see how he came in last year, healthy scratch to his start of his AHL career, and he really earned his ice time. And like you said, top penalty killer. I think it just goes to show how he trusted the process. And when you do the little things, the right details, it rewards you. And I think Jack McGuire and his ice time really has proven that in the last 2 seasons.
For those who don't know, Paige Capistran, right shot D.
Yeah, right shot D, just like Jack McGuire.
Right, exactly. Paige, next year between Kirsanov, Dvorak, Booth, maybe Jared Woolley, the Reign will have a lot of youth on the blue line. I'm assuming Joe Hicketts will come back. I'm assuming he'll be the captain again. But Henry Brustevich signed an entry-level contract, stepped into the lineup, and then was in, as far as I know, every playoff game. Might not, I mean, he's not guaranteed to play in Ontario next year. He's eligible to play in Ontario next year, but he could also go back to the other Ontario, the Ontario Hockey League. Youngest player on the team, what did you like out of his game during the playoffs?
Yeah, I like that he got better and better every game. And I think that the fact I liked, like from the start when he was paired with Joe Hicketts, like you said, the captain of the Reign. I think the way that Joe is with the teammates and just kind of hearing him speak after games to the media on him understanding the importance to making the younger guys feel comfortable. And I think as a defenseman, when you're young, it's so easy to have all eyes on you, especially him. He's a first-round draft pick, like you said. If you mess up, puck is in the back of the net. So it is just a hard position. Like if you come in as a right winger, it's easier to kind of hide more on your mistakes. But in the back end for D, like I said, back of the net if you make a mistake. So I think that he did get better and better. I think the speed of the game is something that is just the biggest difference. Like, he's still a kid. And the fact that he was playing against these men, he held his own. And I think when you're talking about the development, this playoff experience for him will be huge. So I think overall, just a lot of exciting stuff to see from him. And I think just when you're talking about right shot D, it's nice to see if he did come back to the Reign, another righty, because a lot of the D on the Reign this year were lefties.
He led his team in juniors, the London Knights, in scoring as a defenseman. No points in the playoffs with Ontario. Is it fair to judge him by that production, at a significantly younger level of competition?
Well, I think when you join a team as late as he did, being on the same page system-wise and learning those, like, end of the day, if you're a defenseman, you're supposed to do your job in your D zone, and if you are an offensive defenseman, like, that is fine. But when you first arrive, I think, like, you're just supposed to help if you're not noticed, you're doing a good job. So I think that even though he is a 2A D and he didn't put any points up, it's fine. I don't think it's anything to worry about. And I think the biggest thing is he got better each and every game.
Cam, the Reign have a lot of players who might not be back next year on the forward core. Connors, Wright, and Lee are all candidates to potentially grab a spot in LA. Alexandrov, Godin, Chromiak, Brown, Pinelli, Eamson, and Doty currently contracts expire July 1st. How different do you expect the Reign roster to be? And now part of that, I should qualify, the AHL turnover is huge. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not describing some sort of radical situation, but how different could the Reign roster be next year?
Well, you mentioned all the names, right? So I don't know. I'm not the one signing these guys, so it's hard to say how different it'll be, right? But I don't know. Kind of like your last point you mentioned, it changes year by year, and I don't know, if I had to guess right now, I don't think it'll be much different than any other year. You're going to have some guys that were on your team before that are going elsewhere and aren't going to be with the team, and you're going to have some faces that are back that what they re-sign this summer. So I think it's kind of a little too early to tell, but I don't think it'll be anything more obscure than it is in any other normal year.
I mean, I guess I'm anticipating a much younger team. We talked about the youth on the blue line. Connors and Wright are relatively young. Cohen-Ziemer presumably would get more opportunity. I don't know what's going to happen with Caleb Lawrence. Grant Slukinski has a contract. He's not exactly young, but he's hardly, pushing 30 or anything like that. What do you think about the job Andrew Lord did, given how much turnover he had to deal with as head coach?
I think he did a great job. I think from the start up until the end, I think he did a tremendous job. I think one of the biggest things that you look at with the Reign team this year was their consistency. They didn't really have any big lapses in terms of big losing streaks. With that being said, too, they didn't have any huge winning streaks. So I think he did a real good job at kind of keeping the group level-headed. I think the biggest thing that I've seen and just being around is his intensity and his will to work. I think he's the first guy in there every day and probably the last guy to leave every single day. His intensity, his passion for the game, and I think I think the players really respected him, and I think he got the most out of his players.
Paige, a 7-game win streak and a 6-game win streak, and the team finishes first in the division.
That's why it's a killer. They're already out.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk about. Is it a double-edged sword to finish so high, to set those expectations? If they had finished fourth and lose in the first round, you go, well, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
But, like last year you had the built-in issue with the playoff scheduling of the building. But this one, you're sort of grasping at straws that maybe it was the first round bye, but that should be a positive.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, do I ever want to cover another team that gets the first round bye? Nope. But I think that it's hard, and I think it's 72 games. That is a lot of hockey, and the team earned home ice, and they earned that rest period. Whether or not the rest period hurt, I don't know, because definitely hurt for game 1 of the series, but then when you look at game 2, it's all right, we got this. But then after that, it just still, we won game 3, but it was not the Reign's best game at all. I thought Coachella, end of the day, was the better team that game. So, yeah, and I mean, you look at Providence, they were first round bye. They're already out too. So it's there's positives and negatives. I'm sure it just depends on the team and how much rest they need. And I feel like the Reign, though, they were grooving. And yeah, like I said, I'm not a fan of the bye anymore.
Was game 3 the game where I'm looking at the score now and I thought different people scored? I thought Jack Hughes scored the first goal in game 3, but it's listed as Yamson. Was that the one where the Reign's first shot on goal came?
So that was
15 minutes into the
That was game 4, but the Reign, they didn't score until the third period.
Right, in 80 seconds.
Yeah, their first 2 periods weren't their best. Then they played the Reign in the third period. Mm-hmm. So I just think, what Cam said, the team was so consistent this season, but when it came to playoffs, the consistency was no more.
Cam, it felt to me, and again, it's tough watching on Flow. Also, as I was watching Flow hockey, I can't remember which game it was, but I realized after the game ended that I could have been watching your feed, and instead I was watching.
That's sad.
Instead, I was watching Coachella's feed the whole time. I had to kick myself and realize that I had the option of switching. But it felt to me like the Reign offense. And it felt way too simplistic. But when they went to the blue paint, when they went to the front of the net, they seemed to have no problem scoring.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at that series, a lot of the goals were scored in that area. I think it was game 2, if I'm correct, in the 5-1 win. I think we asked Andrew Lord after the game, a lot of your goals, they weren't the prettiest goals. But when you look at them, I think obviously the 5th was an empty netter, but off the top of my head, I know for a fact at least 2 of them, if not 3 of the 4, were literally in the blue paint. And that game, after that game, you tie the series at 1 apiece, and you're like, okay, Ontario's got some mojo. That was the Reign team that we saw throughout the regular season, and for whatever reason, they just couldn't carry it into the rest of the series, and we're able to kind of squeak one out in game 3, and at that point, you're kind of feeling hopeful, but obviously the cards didn't fall the right way. But yeah, I mean, in terms of kind of going back to, I know one of the initial questions was the offense. I think when you look at the Reign's offense during the regular season, they were very opportunistic. It wasn't that, I don't want to say this in like a negative way, but it wasn't like they were generating a ton of chances each game. I think they took value of when they got their opportunities and they were able to capitalize. And I mean, maybe in the playoffs a little bit, they weren't getting as many opportunities as in the regular season, but I think it was more the fact that they weren't able to capitalize on the opportunities that they got in the playoffs.
Paige, what I know about Andrew Lord is that he, at least in his media availabilities, he preaches a really straightforward version of the game. You know, defense, checking, go to the net. I mean, when we interviewed him for the first time, I just felt like, wow, this is a guy tailor-made to work for the LA Kings. And so watching the team in the playoffs, like I said, going to the net, I think the game you're talking about, Cam, was that the one where Logan Brown crashed the net and it sort of bounced off of him? That first goal
1-1 end of the
yeah,
first.
like
Yeah.
Jack Hughes go to the front of the net, Gaudin go to the front of the net.
Yep.
Like anytime there was activity in front of the net. And so when the rain tied the game up late in game 5 with that pressure in front of the net, I just felt like, oh, we'll just keep doing that. Mm-hmm. It seems to work. And I did it almost feel like they were trying to be too cute in the offensive zone? I'm not trying to make this like a slam the Ontario Reign conversation.
They're out, so something went wrong. I don't think they were trying to be too cute. Kind of going off of what Cam said, I feel like in the regular season they were just able to finish. Mm-hmm. Like example, with just a few seconds left in the game 5, Gutman hit the post. Yeah, and I feel like we hit a lot of posts. And obviously, hockey, it's a game of inches. It's a game of bounces. Sometimes the bounces just don't go your way. And there were, like in game 1, I felt like there were a few times where just the Reign didn't get the bounce they needed, and like they got the loss. So I think overall, just something wasn't clicking. But being too cute, I wouldn't say that. But just getting going, that was what I felt like was lacking.
It's funny, in the NHL, we have sites like Money Puck and Natural Stat Trick Cam where you can see heat maps of where the shots are coming from, mm-hmm. and game flow, and you have time on ice numbers, and you can see who's playing with who and against who and how often. And watching AHL, like really getting back into AHL hockey, it reminds me of what it was like to be an NHL fan sort of before the advent of analytics on the internet. And the reason I say too cute is that, like I said, it just felt very perimeter to me. It felt like there wasn't a lot of cohesion in the forward lines. But like I said, I don't want to turn this into a slam the Reign. But Cam, your first season concludes here in Ontario. Just on a personal note, how's it been for you? What do you think about hockey in Southern California and in the South Bay and Ontario, that commute? Yeah,
I think the season as a whole was great, right? First place in the regular season. Can't ask for much more than that. Obviously, when the team you're working for is winning, it makes the job a little bit more easier and makes it more fun to come to the rink every day. I don't want to say the word shocked, but I was kind of taken back by the fan support out in Ontario. I think every night the fans came out and showed their support, and there was more people in that building than I kind of anticipated going into the season. So obviously a huge thanks to the fans, even at the end, coming out to those playoff games late when, you find out maybe a day or two before this game's going to take place and you don't know, but they came out every night. I know our players kind of preached the same thing, that they couldn't have asked for a better fan base. So overall, it was a pretty good season.
And you didn't even have to dress like a fish.
Didn't dress like a fish.
Yet.
Yeah.
Paige, not your first season, but you're still relatively new in the market. Thoughts, how's it going so far?
Yeah, I just think working in the AHL is fun. It's really fun to see prospects go up and go down. Well, not down, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Just see them make their dreams come true, which is so cliche. But I think of a guy like Taylor Ward. Last year, he was with the Reign. So in my first season, he was there the whole time, and he got his one shot late in April against Calgary, and then this year he never came back down when he went up. So I think just being able to be around the team when they're doing things like that, it's just really cool, and still learning, just keep working hard, and it's a good season.
You're the perfect person to ask this question. Then I've been having this disagreement with people in the media, people in analytics. I'm prepared to accept that I'm just alone on my island on this one. The question is, what is a prospect? And my reasoning is this. If a player has a contract that makes him eligible to join the LA Kings, he's a prospect. And my examples are Jeff Malott and Taylor Ward, two guys who played in Ontario that nobody had on the rankings of like top Kings prospects. They're too old or whatever. But those are the guys that get called up. And those are the guys, Jared Wright was not top of anybody's list. He winds up racking up 20-some games in the NHL. So who's right, me or everybody else?
I mean, I feel like, so I guess it's subjective the way you're saying it.
Well, but I'm drawing a line and saying it's not subjective. If you have a contract, you're like Phoenix Copley's a prospect until July 1st. The fact that he's, older than, that he's not on his entry-level contract and there's no likelihood of him having a 15-year career in the NHL. Okay, but if there's an injury and he gets called up and he's there for a long time, he's, that's it. Everybody else, as far as I'm concerned, is making up arbitrary, subjective designations of like, well, he doesn't feel like a prospect, so therefore he's not a prospect.
Yeah, I'll go if you have a shot.
All right.
There you go.
One more person on my island. Cam?
I'm kind of the same, right? It's like, well, what prospect? Is it feels like a prospect or is a prospect? I'm kind of with you, Jesse.
Good. Yeah. It's the right answer.
Kind of with you.
Take that, everybody else. All right. Cam, Paige, thank you so much for joining me. And sorry about the playoffs, but better luck next season.
Yeah, thanks for having
Jesse.
us.